Hello everybody, good afternoon. This is Maika Sanderson, the Grants Program Manager for the Farm to School Grant Program. Hard to believe you are about 6 weeks now into your grant term, so you all should be proud of yourselves, and I'm sure gearing up, at least your project director, for the upcoming grantee gathering. So we're so excited to have you all on board. Today we're going to be going through some important information about the evaluation and reporting requirements associated with being a Farm to School grantee. So in addition to myself, my fantastic grants officer, Anna, will also be co-presenting with me today. Anna, do you want to give a quick hello?
Hi, everybody.
So Anna will be talking a bit more about the financial side of things as it relates to reporting a bit later in the webinar. So as I had alluded to before, we have a lot to get through today, so I'm going to kind of lay out the roadmap for us. I'm going to give just a very, very quick background on the Farm to School Grant Program and kind of where these evaluation requirements come from. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about evaluation in general, just kind of giving us some common terms from which we can work. I know some folks are very familiar with evaluating their federal grant projects, while others may not have any experience at all. So I want to make sure that we all have similar vocabulary and similar understandings of the basic concepts of what does it take to evaluate your project that you'll be working on. Then I will go through very briefly a few evaluation resources that you all will be able to find on the Office of Community Food Systems website that you all can access and leverage throughout your grant period in order to execute your evaluation work. Then we'll go through both the programmatic reporting and financial reporting requirements. So what is due, when is it due, how do I submit it, type of information. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So hopefully we can get through all of this good information with plenty of time for folks to ask any questions. So really quickly, I wanted to go through some housekeeping. So as you may be able to tell, everyone is muted on the line with the exception of the speakers. So if you have a question throughout this webinar, please use the chat function that's found, I'm assuming, on the left-hand side of your screen. You can go ahead and type in questions there. Please do note that audio is through your computer, so if this has been silent, you're not hearing me right now, but hopefully the slide is indicating to you that the webinar has started and you should be hearing us. Turn up the volume through your computer to hear more clearly. I sent out an email earlier, not too long ago, giving folks the phone number to dial in should the audio not be cooperating as you would like it to be. The webinar is going to be available after this. We will also make sure to post a PDF of the slides so that you all can reference the important information that we'll be sharing with you all today. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So as many of you already know from probably participating on our onboarding webinar, the Farm to School program was established through an amendment in the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act. And very specifically in this piece of legislation, as one of the tenets for kind of establishing the Farm to School Grant Program, it specifically states that those who are engaging in the Farm to School Grant Program must cooperate in an evaluation by the Secretary of the program using grant funds. And so that's just fancy language to say that if you're going to be accepting Farm to School grant funds, that you are expected to evaluate your project and make sure that it is having the intended outcome that you set out to achieve. So what is evaluation exactly? It is a term that's commonly thrown about quite a bit. So just want to make sure that folks kind of have a really good understanding of what it means. And so an evaluation really is a structured process of really assessing the success of your project and meeting its goals. And people who do really fantastic evaluation actually take they take that data to really understand like, well, if I'm not achieving the progress on this goal as I thought I would be, maybe I need to change direction. Maybe there's something I'm not implementing correctly in my project, which is hindering me from achieving my goal or objective. So evaluation is actually really two parts. It consists of a process evaluation as well as an outcome evaluation. So what do these two terms mean? A process evaluation is really assessing and really trying to figure out, am I executing this program as I had planned to do it? So the example provided here is if I said I was going to reach 50 students by month 6 with taste tests, did I actually do that? Or did I only do half that amount? Or did I not even do any? So a process evaluation is really asking the question of, am I executing the program according to the plan that I originally laid out? And an outcome evaluation is really much more focused on the impact. So is the program achieving desired results such as behavior change, knowledge increase, or skill development? So a common example for an outcome evaluation for a farm-to-school project might be, are students actually consuming more local fruits and vegetables as a result of my farm-to-school project? So in that case, you're really measuring success against a behavior change, and that behavior change being, are the kids eating more local fruits and vegetables? So, or another example might be, is more of the school food budget being used to procure local foods? Again, a behavior change in how the budget is being allocated. So that's an important distinction to understand, that a robust evaluation actually has two parts, a process evaluation and an outcome evaluation. So why is evaluation so important and so key? So we wanted to make sure that we went through a couple of the key motivators or things to keep in the back of your mind as to why you may be spending some of your time and resources to actually evaluating your projects. So it's not just because the legislation says you have to do it, but there's actually real benefits to executing a robust evaluation of your farm-to-school project. So the first of which is data, specifically evaluation data, can really help you to tell your story. If you're able to understand what kind of impact your farm-to-school project is having, and you have supporting data to show a change, before it was like this, but after implementing my program, it's now like that. It really allows you to be able to tell a compelling story that not only would garner more attention for your district or your organization, but also likely create more funding opportunities. A lot of times when applying to other funding opportunities, they want to know, what is your experience? Are you good at what you've been doing if you're asking us for funds to do a certain kind of project? So it's really important to have those hard data facts to show, with all these efforts that you've invested, this is the result. It did actually have a change or a desired impact. Another thing that having evaluation data can be really helppful for is that it can really help to track the progress of your farm-to-school project. So for many folks, their projects are either 12 months or 24 months, so a year or 2 years, which is quite a bit of time. So along the way, you want to make sure that you are engaging with your stakeholders and creating transparency so they understand, as time is going on, how is the funding being used, and what are the results of that? What is the impact? So really collecting data on the progress of your farm-to-school project will really allow for you to facilitate better communication and create transparency across the multiple stakeholders that would be engaged in your farm-to-school work or project. Data can also help to influence policy. Even having the amendment to the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act, it wasn't just done through anecdotal information about why farm to school is important and how it can help to change behaviors and attitudes among students and stimulate the economy. There was data to help support those arguments, which helped to move the political will to actually amend the National School Lunch Act in order to make these funds available to folks. So having this data, the work that you all are doing and being able to have supporting data to show that the work that you're doing is effective just contributes to the larger body of research and potentially could help kind of contribute to that national dialogue around farm to school and its impact and how it's effective. And on a more local basis, for you all it could, in school districts it could impact local wellness policies, or in organizations it could impact kind of the operational structure. So again, having that data can really be a way to influence structures and operations. So as I had mentioned, I know that amongst the folks that are on the call with us today and across our Farm to School grantees, there are varying levels of comfort and familiarity with evaluation. A lot of times for folks, evaluation feels pretty scary, but I am here to settle your fears. Do not be afraid. It's really not so bad. So we want to make sure to kind of break down some of the vocabulary around the evaluation terms, and really a lot of the hard work has already been done. When you submitted your project proposal to USDA, you were already required to include an evaluation plan. And so for some folks, maybe the evaluation plan wasn't as robust as it could be, but now after experiencing this particular webinar, and when you go to the grantee gathering, you'll be meeting your Farm to School regional lead and connecting with other folks. You might get ideas of how to perhaps modify your evaluation plan a bit to be a bit more robust and collect the information that's necessary. Or you may find through this webinar that, hey, you're right on target and everything looks good in terms of the evaluation plan that you submitted. But this is just really an opportunity to provide a level playing field for everyone on the line to really understand evaluation and how it could help support their project, and just taking a look at their evaluation plan again to make sure that it's really in alignment with the project objectives and collecting the right indicators to measure success. So let's dive into a program framework. So when you are developing an evaluation plan, you usually use a program framework to kind of put all the pieces together in terms of kind of understanding what you're trying to achieve, what are the major milestones to achieving that larger vision, and then what activities do you have to do to achieve each of the objectives, and then what are those intended outcomes. So taking a look at the framework that we have on the screen, you can see at the top is the goal. So with your project should have either one, maybe two project goals. It just really depends how large your project is. But a goal is really, what is the vision that was set with the project that you outlined? What is a specified accomplishment to be achieved at some point in the future? It's usually aspirational and really far-reaching. So the examples that we have here are a general regular one would be to win a gold medal in the 2020 Olympics for swimming. And for Farm to School, a goal might be to increase the amount of local foods in school meals. And so in order to achieve that particular goal, you would want to determine what are 1 to 2, maybe 3, again it just depends on what is the capacity of your team, objectives that you would do in order, or that you would try to achieve in order to hit that goal. So you might be thinking, well, what exactly is an objective? An objective is more of a milestone. So this milestone would mark progress against achieving that particular goal. And then under your objective is really what are those specific things that you are doing to achieve that particular objective. So those are the things that you would assign out to your team. That's kind of like the day-to-day operations. What are those activities you can be doing to achieve that particular objective? And then as a result of whatever activities that you're doing, that's how you reach the desired outcome. And so again, going back, what is an outcome? An outcome is a change in skills, behavior, or attitude. So how can we have more students eating local produce? How can we have more students engaging in school gardens? How can we have more students being exposed to agricultural nutrition education? These are all these are all outcomes that can be a result of the various activities that you and your team are executing. So with your objectives, which as I had mentioned are your achievable milestones or targets to be reached, you're going to really want to make sure that they are SMART. And again, you all should be pretty familiar with this. It was actually in the RFA when you were submitting your project proposal. We really tried to make sure that folks created objectives that were specific, measurable, something that's attainable and feasible for your staffing capacity, relevant, is it in alignment with the overall project goal, and time bound. So not just saying we are going to procure local corn for the National School Lunch Program, but by when is that going to be done, and how many dollars or how many pounds of corn do we want to procure for the National School Lunch Program? Again, you want to make sure that your objectives are very specific and measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based, so that you are able to really have a robust evaluation of that particular objective. So as I had mentioned before, outcomes really describe the change in a condition. So has there been a change in knowledge? Are students more knowledgeable about where their food is coming from? Are they more open to local fruits, vegetables, and protein? And their behavior, are they actually consuming more of these kinds of local goods? Are they engaging in these types of educational opportunities and experiential activities? So are these changing conditions things that we want to see that will help us to reach our goal? So some examples of outcomes are 10% increase in local food purchasing, a 50% increase in school meal satisfaction, or some specified increase in agricultural knowledge among middle school students exposed to the newly developed and implemented farm-to-school education. So again, seeing that change in one of the three categories of knowledge, attitudes, or behavior that relate to a particular goal and objective that has been set out. So I know that was a lot of information, and again, that was just to give you all kind of a sense of the general terms or common terms that are used when trying to kind of formulate your evaluation. But we also wanted to make sure that we pointed you all to the evaluation resources that are available on the Farm to School website. So there are a couple of evaluation guides that have been developed over the last few years, and we wanted to just make sure that you all were aware of them. So already a lot of these, besides the links that are listed here, you can find a lot of these resources on our Farm to School website. So make sure to go to fns.usda.gov/farm to school. And you'll see under Grant Program there's going to be a Grantee Resources link toward the bottom of the page. And you should just bookmark that page because it's going to have so much information that you will need throughout the course of your grant term. I will also make sure to highlight this particular website in the follow-up email that I send after this webinar. So some evaluation guides that you all will want to kind of keep in your back pocket. So in the Farm to School Planning Toolkit, really designed for our planning grantees or folks just getting started in farm to school, but there is a specific module within this planning toolkit that really talks to evaluation, which is Module 10. So download that guide, take a look at Module 10, and it'll definitely get the juices flowing in terms of evaluation frameworks and kind of ways to look at your project and ensure that you have both process and outcome related activities. Another fantastic evaluation toolkit is the one that was developed by the Colorado Farm to School Task Force. In there you can find a number of resources, even surveys that help to measure changes in knowledge and skill and attitude change. So don't feel like you have to come up with the surveys yourself. A lot of surveys have already been created for Farm to School. So check out the Colorado Farm to School Task Force Evaluation Toolkit, as well as the Wisconsin Farm to School Toolkit for school nutrition programs. Another fantastic resource, also contains surveys, and again is just a way to kind of help you all along in making sure that your evaluation plans are robust and really kind of cover everything that you have in your project proposal. And then last but not least, the Evaluation for Transformation guide. So this is an extremely comprehensive toolkit. I believe it's over 60 pages, so do not be scared when you download this guide. But again, taking a look to really identify maybe the specific areas or indicators that they may have in their toolkit that could help give you all ideas about which indicators would be best for the goals and objectives and activities that you all have outlined in your project. So the link to this guide is found here. And we actually hosted a webinar a couple of years back going through this resource. So I have the link to that particular webinar on this slide as well. And then we have Bearing Fruit, the Farm to School Program Evaluation Resource and Recommendations. This has sample surveys that actually touch across a lot of different stakeholders, so food service directors, students, farmers, teachers, so designed to ask questions of those particular groups. So take a look at this one as well. It might, if the other resources don't have what you're looking for, this is another fantastic resource in terms of evaluation. So taking a quick break to remind folks that the Grantee Gathering is coming up soon. It is Thursday, Friday, September 13th and 14th. The Farm to School team is so excited to meet you all. It is in Detroit, Michigan. Your project director has been receiving several emails about the Grantee Gathering, but just wanted to remind folks that it is coming and we can't wait to see you all. And actually during the Grantee Gathering, there is a session that will touch a bit on evaluation again. So there will be some in-person opportunity to kind of wrestle with your proposal and get some more tips and tricks about evaluating your project successfully. So I want to make sure that folks weren't falling asleep at their desk. So I have a pop quiz for you all. So which of the following describes an outcome evaluation? Is it A, determine if program is being executed as planned/intended, B, determine if the program resulted in desired behavior, attitude, knowledge change, and or skills development, C, both A and B, or D, none of the above? So go ahead and type the letter associated with the answer for this particular question in the chat box, and I will then reveal the answer. So I'm seeing a lot of B's. I saw a B question mark. I see B's. I see a lot of B's coming in. I saw a handful of C. Oh, I see a test taker here. C. Always pick C was the response. All right, y'all. So I see a majority of B's. Let's see if y'all are right. B it is. Very good. So which of the following describes an outcome evaluation? So an outcome evaluation is to determine if the program resulted in a desired behavior, attitude, or knowledge change. Remember, a process evaluation is really to see if you executed the program as planned or intended. All right, that was a warm-up. Good job, everybody. Okay, so USDA program reporting. I wanted to go through give you all kind of like a high level of what is required in terms of reporting now that you all are a farm to school grantee. So one important concept to understand is you all are conducting your own evaluation of your project. You decide how you're going to do it. You're going to decide what indicators, meaning what type of data you're going to collect to measure progress on your goals, objectives, activities. And then also we here in national office, in the Office of Community Food Systems, are conducting our own evaluation of the Farm to School program, of your all's work. And we really execute that through this programmatic reporting that we send to you all via email. So the progress reporting really helps us to have a good understanding of the general progress that you're making on your overall project throughout the grant period. And it allows us to know where we could provide you with additional technical assistance. And the baseline and final reporting that we send, which is a report we send one at the beginning, one at the end of your grant term, really allows us to see how much of the needle has moved for your target audience in terms of your project. So if you were targeting 5 school districts and you wanted to increase the number of school gardens, we want to know at the start were there 3 school gardens and now at the end there are 5. We just want to have a good understanding of, as a whole, when we are giving out money, what kind of impact are farm to school funds having on farm to school across the nation. So we're going to really focus in on the program reporting requirements. So I wanted to provide you all a little overview. So what is required of you all in terms of programmatic reporting? So the key components to remember is that we will be giving you all a baseline report at the start of your grant project. It's a one-time report. Then we start to send you all progress reports. Those are sent every 6 months on a semi-annual basis. And then at the end of your grant term, so once your project end date has passed, you will then have a certain amount of time to complete the final report. So in case you might be wondering, well, when are all the due dates? I want to see a whole timeline for my particular grant period. We actually just uploaded the FY18 reporting timeline on the Farm to School website. So that's the link here. I will also make sure to send it via email after this webinar. So one thing I wanted to flag for folks is that the baseline report is not required for training grantees. So let's dive into each one of these reports. So the baseline report, when are you getting it? You will receive the baseline report no later than the end of this month. So as you know, the end of this month is mighty soon. So you will be getting an email from me, Maika.Sanderson, with a link to your baseline report. So you'll receive an email. Within your email, there's going to be a link. It's a link just for your organization. Once you click it, you will be then taken to an online electronic survey where you will see a set of questions that you will have to complete. Again, remember, training grantees do not submit a baseline report. They are off the hook. So when is this due? You are required to complete this report by October 31st, so you have some time, about 2 months. I do want to flag for you all that the baseline report is a pretty robust report. It has about 40 questions, 35 to 40 questions on it. A lot of which are kind of like drop downs and X's and fill-ins, but I would say that it's important that you all take a look at the sample baseline report that's found on the Farm to School website and print it out. It's much easier to complete this particular report if you have all the data that you need prior. So make sure to prepare your data in advance by taking a look at a sample report that's on the site. One survey per grant project is all that's necessary. If you have any questions about your baseline report, you just shoot an email to Farm to School and we're happy to help. So just to give you a quick little flavor, what is on the baseline report? Whoa, 35 questions, like what are you asking us? So for us, we really want to have a good understanding of the partnerships and networks, the procurement, how much of your procurement is local foods at the very beginning of your project. How are you preparing your food and serving it? Having an understanding of various farm-to-school activities that may or may not be happening among the target audience that you are looking to implement your project with. And then just having an understanding of the policies that may or may not be in place among the folks that will be benefiting from your project proposal. So in terms of partnerships and networks, some questions are literally like, who are you working with as it relates to your existing farm-to-school work? Who are the supporting groups? And how much are you working with them? Are you working with them once a week, once a month, annually, daily? This kind of information is just informative for us in understanding and continuing to shine a light on what does it take, who does it take, and at what frequency and depth to have a successful farm-to-school project. Procurement, and this is very important. We really want to understand the procurement data for the schools or districts that you may be targeting. So for some folks who are nonprofits working with school districts, making sure that you reach out to them early so that you can get this data from them. We really want to understand how much or what percentage of food is local, where is that food coming from, distributors, which local farmers, what's your definition of local, what types of foods or goods that are local are being procured. We want to know what they are. And then how often are they used in the menu, and how are they used? How are they prepared? For the Farm to School team and in terms of our evaluation efforts, this is the information that is most valued to us, or one of the most valued pieces of information for the Farm to School team. So we tell folks, if you're trying to figure out where to focus your evaluation efforts, really understanding procurement and tracking progress against your procurement goals from start to finish is a really good place to invest a bulk of your evaluation willpower, if you will. Because these are numbers that the Office of Community Food Systems really likes to report out and is a strong indicator of the success of our programs. Of course, there are other indicators of success as it relates to change in skills and attitude. So those are important things to take a look at as well. Food preparation, we really want to understand, are food service staff being trained? What percentage of cooking is done from scratch? Again, all things that, a few questions in there around that. And then also just understanding what is the existing state of farm to school activities before you started your project. So, what kind of local procurement activities are happening, what extracurricular activities or activities during the school day that are related to farm to school may be currently happening before you started your project, any promotions or communications, understanding if there are any kind of experiential or gardening activities that are already being done as it relates to farm to school. And then just understanding the number of edible school gardens or greenhouses or aquaponic, hydroponic types of programs that may already exist among the target population. Again, think of the baseline as us just understanding before you started your project, where was the target population in terms of farm to school activities? Because once we have a baseline, it really lets us tell a story of this is where we started and this is where we ended when we collect that final report data and compare the two. Last but not least, policies. So just a checklist of policies in place that support farm to school. We ask a few questions about that on the baseline. So that's that for baseline. Now, as you recall, I said that programmatic reporting requirements include baseline, and they also include progress reports and final reports. So progress reports, these reports are issued semi-annually. So the very first progress report you are going to receive is going to be October 1st, 2018. You'll get it from me, Maika.Sanderson. You are going to have 30 days to complete your report, and that is standard. So progress reports, you will always have 30 days to complete them. So you will have to complete this report by October 31st. Your first progress report is a little weird in that the reporting period for it is only 3 months because you all were awarded at the end of June. But every progress report after that is a 6-month reporting period. So you're reporting semi-annually. So as I had mentioned, the FY18 reporting timeline is on the Farm to School website. So you'll see a list of all the dates and all the stuff that's due on that timeline. So you might be wondering, what exactly am I reporting on? So for your progress report, you're telling us about your challenges, your successes, any changes in key staff, your anticipated budget changes. Just really kind of high level, what's going on with the project, what did you accomplish, what's going wrong, how can we support you. So if you want to see the actual questions for a progress report, you can find that on the Farm to School website under the Reporting and Evaluation Tools section of the Grantee Resource page. Again, I will send out the link to the Grantee Resource page, which will have all of the things that we're talking about today. Just a flag for you, progress reports. So if you are a planning or an implementation grantee, there is one progress report for you. And then training grantees, you have another set of questions. So your progress report as a training grantee looks different from that of a planning and implementation grantee. It's separated out on the website, so you all can look at your respective progress report template there. Just like the baseline report, you will receive a link. You will receive a link in an email. We send it out to the progress reporting contact. Final report. So this is the last programmatic report that is required. As it sounds, you would receive this report at the end of your grant period. So once your project end date has elapsed, you will receive an email with a link. It is going to be coming from me, Maika.Sanderson, and I will cordially invite you to complete your final report. As you can imagine, it is similar in length to the baseline report because basically we're just checking back in with you on the same exact questions. Hey, remember all that stuff you told us a year ago or 2 years ago? Well, how do the metrics look on all of those questions now? So again, as you get closer to the end of your grant term, we really suggest that you once you get invited, you'll have 90 days to complete the report. Take a look at the report when you get invited and make sure that you can kind of prepare all that data in advance. It is about 35 to 40 questions. We really ask that you pay attention to for which the target audience that you provided the data on for the baseline, it should be the same target audience for the final report. So if a school dropped, you probably want to tell us in the final report that a school dropped out of the project because for our analytical purposes, it would be good to know that information. So in case you're curious to see what the final report looks like, yes, it is available on the Farm to School website on the Grantee Resource page under Reporting and Evaluation Tools. Training grantees do have a different set of questions. Training grantees are always so special. Again, you can see the final report template for training grantees on the website. It's separated out. And then I wanted to flag that planning grantees, when you submit your final report, you will be required to submit an action plan. So do not forget that. An example of an action plan can be found on the grantee resource page, so do check it out. The idea is that as you are conducting your planning grant and collecting all that research and information and kind of digging deep into your challenges and developing solutions, that you are also preparing your action plan. So do not wait to the last minute to write up your action plan. This should be an exercise that you're doing as you go through your planning grant term. If you have questions, please email the Farm to School website. And then final report for training grants, as I said, a different set of questions, and also wanted to remind training grantees that when you all are conducting your trainings, that there are a set of questions that you should be asking the folks that attend your training. So you can include any questions that you have decided pertinent per your evaluation plan, but there are a handful of questions, I think it's only 2 or 3, that USDA would like for you to include in that questionnaire to the folks that attended your training. So please check out that document that I have there. It's also linked on the grantee resource page, which will contain those required USDA questions. Another thing to keep in mind when you're collecting this data from folks that attended your training, it's really good to make sure that you know the number of folks that attended your training by category. So it's just good for us to know, how many food service professionals or parents or teachers or agricultural producers or farmers, kind of breaking them down into these different categories. So just make sure that information is collected when issuing that evaluation to your training attendees. The grantee resource page, which I have just been raving about this whole entire webinar, really does have everything that you need as it relates to evaluation and reporting, but also just kind of getting through your Farm to School grant. That's where we kind of put all of the webinar slides and the recordings and the contact information and templates. So please bookmark this page. Visit it often. It has a lot of good information. Another quick reporting resource that I wanted to flag is the reporting timeline. The reporting resource for kind of, as when you fill out your baseline report and then you're expected to report back on all of this stuff at the end of your grant term, some folks kind of wanted a tracker, like, can I track this information as I go along? So we created an Excel spreadsheet that would allow you to do just that. It is optional. You do not have to submit this document at the end of your grant term. This is just an additional resource for you to track kind of all of the data that you may be collecting on your grant project throughout your grant term. All right, another quick pop quiz. I want to make sure folks are still awake. The baseline and first progress report are due when? Is it A, October 31st, 2018, B, December 31st, 2018, New Year's, C, progress reports are not required, D, none of the above? So go ahead and type the answer into the chat box. And I am seeing a lot of A's, A. Okay, I see a lot of A's. So let's see if folks are correct. Yes, very, very good. So the baseline and first progress report are both due October 31st, 2018, Halloween. So that should be an easy one to remember. Y'all haven't been invited yet, but for your progress report, you'll be invited October 1st, and for your baseline report, you'll be invited by the end of this month. True, false. At the time of final report submission, all grantees must submit an action plan. Go ahead and use that chat box to tell me what you think. I see false, true, lots of falses. False, 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 false. Lots of falses. All right, let's see if the consensus is correct. And it is. Only planning grantees must submit an action plan with the final report. Y'all should tap yourselves on the back. Very good, very good. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you all. All right, Anna, it is your show now. I'm kicking it to you for financial reporting.
Great. Thanks, Maika. Okay, everybody, because I'm the grants officer, I deal with all things financial. So I'm going to talk to you about the financial reports. The financial reports are due quarterly. As with the progress reports, they're due 30 days after the end of the reporting period, but for financials, the reporting period is each federal fiscal quarter. You must log into the FIPPers system, and I hope that everybody has access to FIPPers now, or at least is in the process of it. If you don't think you are, or if you're not sure you are, contact your grants officer. That would be me for the implementation grants, or Carla Garcia for the planning or training grants. Your first financial report is due October 31st, and it is for the reporting period of July 1st to September 30th of 2018. So as I already said, shoot us an email if you've got any questions, and we're happy to help. This is an example of the FIPPers home screen, which is what you see when you first log into FIPPers. My apologies for the small image. You don't need to actually read what it says here, but I wanted to give you an idea of what you see, what you will see when you first log into FIPPers. I'm going to go through the submission process step by step. My intention, though, is not for you to remember all of this come October when your first report is due, but instead to provide this information to you now so you'll have it as a resource when it is time for you to go submit. I know I wouldn't be able to remember all these steps if I didn't have to do it right away. So when you log in, you may or may not see a notice that you have a report due. If you do have that notice, it would actually be below what you see on the screen. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the way that it will always work. So the first thing you want to do when you log in is click the button at the top of the screen that is highlighted in yellow, and it says Online Forms. And once you do that, the button right below that, slightly to the left, says Submission. And if you don't already have a screen that says Submission on it, then click the Submission button, and it will take you to this screen. This is the screen where most errors occur. So what I want to do is really highlight the correct options in the drop-down boxes that you need to select. The top portion should be pretty self-explanatory. Only your own information should be there, only for the reports and grants that you have access to. But that last line is the one where people make their mistakes. The first drop-down on that last line where the purple arrow is pointing to it, where it says FY 2018, these are FY18 grants, so that first drop-down should always say FY 2018. Even once the calendar changes to 2019, for this grant, the box will always say FY 2018. And then the second drop-down box right next to it, that will change with every report. I've got this one on this slide set for what you'll need when you submit the report that's due October 31st. This last drop-down box is probably the one where everybody makes at least the same mistake once. You'll be selecting FY 2018 quarter 4. That seems wrong, but you need to remember that the federal fiscal year starts in October of every year, so we appear to be a quarter ahead of ourselves, but we're really not. And then once you have the proper drop-down item selected, click the Next button at the bottom left of your screen. This slide just shows what you'll see when you click the second drop-down arrow, so I'm kind of backing up a little bit since I can't do this in real time. You'll also notice that there are 3 quarters prior to the one where you're going to be reporting on. FIPPers doesn't care what time of year you receive your grant. If it's an FY 2018 grant, then FIPPers wants a report for each quarter. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've entered blank reports for all of my implementation grantees, and I'm quite sure that Carla has done the same for her planning and training grantees. If you do select the wrong quarter, one of 2 things will happen. Number 1, if you select a quarter that's already passed, it will show as a revision, not a new report, and I'll show you an example of that on the next slide. If you skip ahead and select a future quarter, FIPPers will return an error message saying that your report is out of sequence and it won't let you submit ahead of time. Okay, so once you click Next, it summarizes what you've submitted at the bottom. So you can see at the bottom of this slide, it says quarterly. You've selected a quarterly report, and then you can see in the red box an orange arrow, just in case you need it highlighted extra. That's a link for new, and that's where you would submit a new report. As I mentioned on the last slide, if you select an earlier quarter by mistake, where this slide has the link for new, you will see revision instead, and there will be a number, 1 or greater. Where this slide says 0 under revision, it will be a number. So remember, you want to avoid that. You want to avoid a revision unless that's something you are intentionally doing, not just going in to submit your quarterly report like always, and oops, you do a revision by mistake. Okay, this is what you'll see once you click on the New button that I showed you on the last slide. The required data elements are in sections 8 and 10. We're not sure what happened to section 9, so we're just going to skip it. And I'm going to break this out for you by sections. And again, I'm going through this quickly now, but I'm breaking it out for you with the instructions so you'll have that information when you need it in the future. At the top of the form, Section 8 is for the grant period. This is the full grant period, not just the 3-month period you're reporting on. These dates are in your award letter, and they're in boxes 20 and 21 of your FNS 529 grant agreement. And these dates will be the same for every report you submit. So I think these grants started, I'm not even going to say because I'm going to get it wrong. They started in late June, and they go through June 30th of 2019 or 20, depending on how long your grant is. Okay, the next is Section 10, and that is where most of the action is. Lines D through H on this form are for your federal funds. I've got all the instructions on this slide, so you'll have it, but I'm just going to whiz through them. Line D is the full amount of your grant award. This amount will not change with reports. It stays the same. So if you received $100,000 for your grant, that's what's going to be on that line every single time. Line E is the amount of grant funds that have been expended or, to be more specific, actually withdrawn from your ASAP account. This is a cumulative number. So if in this quarter you withdraw $5,000, that's what you'll enter on line E of your next report. And then the following quarter, if you withdraw another $5,000, you'll actually enter $10,000 on that line E because you're going to be adding the 2 quarters together. So it's a cumulative process. It's a common error that grantees do not treat this line as cumulative, so I'm harping on it here a little bit. Line F, the next one down, is where you would enter federal funds that you have obligated but you haven't yet withdrawn from your ASAP account. An example would be if you purchased some supplies for your school gardens and you used funds that you have on hand with the intent of reimbursing yourself from your ASAP account at a later date. Or if you're purchasing a piece of equipment and you've submitted a purchase order for it but haven't actually withdrawn the funds from your ASAP account to pay for it, you would record that here. You may or may not have anything to enter on this line in any given quarter. Line G is pretty self-explanatory. It is E plus F. And then line H is the amount of funds that are remaining in your ASAP account that have not been withdrawn or otherwise obligated. I'm pretty sure FIPPers does that math for you. Okay. The next section with lines I through K are for your matching funds. So similar to the prior section, the first line is the total match amount required, and it stays the same with every report. The line after that, J, is the cumulative amount of matching funds that you've contributed to the grant up through the period you're reporting on. So again, if you contributed $5,000 in matching funds this quarter and another $1,000 the following quarter, you would report $6,000 in the second quarter. And then the last line, line K, is the amount of matching funds that you have yet to contribute. This is the best part. You can disregard lines L through O. That is for program income, and the vast majority of farm-to-school grants do not generate program income. If you think you do, please contact your grants officer. Again, it's either Carla or myself outside of the webinar, and we can discuss that. Section 11 you will need to complete if you have requested indirect cost as part of your award. Just to note that indirect costs will be part of the amount that you report on line E, not a separate or additional amount for the grant. Then once you've got everything entered, you want to actually submit the report. This slide's a little bit wacky because I'm the grants officer, my role is to post, but your role as the grantee is to certify. I don't have access to FIPPers in the capacity to certify a report, so you got a screenshot of my privileges instead. So on this slide where my screen says post in the red box, yours will say certify. One of the things that a lot of grantees do is they save it, but they don't actually certify the report. And if you save it without certifying it, it never comes into my queue to post the report, and it lingers in cyberspace for a couple of weeks, and then FIPPers will delete it. One thing that I recommend that you do before you certify your report is to run an edit check. And it is just to the left of your Certify button is the Edit Check button. When you do that, you will see a screen that looks like this. And if all is in order, you will have 0 errors or warnings, and you can just click on OK, and then it will take you back to the screen to certify your report. But if you do have an error or a warning, you'll see that in this box as well, and it will tell you what the issue is just below. You can see in the blue letters the warning messages. And you have 2 options. You can ignore it, which is a very bad idea, and proceed on with certifying your report. Or you can click Close, which is a very good idea, and you can correct the error. If you're stumped and the error messages make no sense to you, you can exit FIPPers and contact your grants officer for assistance. If you do that, take a screenshot of your error message if you can. That would be a huge help. And then just because we like to be super careful, if you've made all the corrections, you hit OK, your report will post. And then you just have to hit OK one more time because FIPPers likes to make sure. And then your final financial report is due 90 days after the close of the grant. Again, you need to log in and submit it through FIPPers. As Maika mentioned earlier, the instructions will be on the Farm to School website, and your grants officers are always happy to help you with that. So that is it. That is all for me. I'm going to hand it back over to Maika or see if we have any questions.
Thank you. So more to come at the 2018 Grantee Gathering. Thanks so much, Anna, for laying out all of the steps. I want to be respectful of people's time. I'm sorry, there's always like no time for questions, but it's 3:29. For folks who have burning questions, please at this time use the chat box to submit those. And then Anna has been fantastic in monitoring the chat box, and actually we haven't received any questions throughout the presentation. Usually I'd be afraid that folks fell asleep, but everybody was responding to my pop quizzes, so I'm just going to assume that things are very, very clear, hence why we didn't receive any questions throughout. But at this time, if you have a question, please go ahead and enter it into the chat box. But were there any last announcements that you had, Anna, to share with folks while we give folks a couple of minutes to type in any questions?
I don't think so. Nothing I can think of.
Okay. And then I'm trying to think of any, the big thing is right now you all should really be hyper-focused on getting registered for FIPPers, the financial program reporting system, as well as ASAP, which is the system that's used to draw down funds. So maybe you as the programmatic reporting contact, that's not your job, but next time you see your project director, check in and make sure that that's being handled. When that isn't done, it can really cause a lot of delays for the administrative side of the project, which is very important to pay attention to. So make sure that you all are keeping up with that. If you're like, what's FIPPers, huh? Like, how do we do that again? How do I log in? What? We have a grantee checklist on the grantee resource page. It's been sent out via email several times, but inboxes can be crazy scary places. So go to the grantee resource page, download the grantee checklist, and go ahead and follow those steps, or your project director, to ensure that you all are able to access FIPPers and ASAP. So we do have a few questions. My babbling was not for naught. So one question is, we have two different people responsible for the program and financial reporting. Do they both need FIPPers access or just the financial person? Really good question. Only the financial person needs access to FIPPers. The programmatic person is going to receive an email directly to them with a link, and they'll click the link to access the programmatic report. We have another question. If you start a progress report and want to finish later, can it be saved and returned to later? Very good question. So you'll see when you get your first progress report, it has separate pages. So if you fill in some of the fields, get to the bottom, and click Next, whatever you entered on that page will be saved. So you have to advance to the next page to save your responses. And you can go back and complete it at a later time. Then we had another question. How soon will the webinar be posted? Really, really great question. There are a couple of steps here with the federal government in terms of getting things posted to the website. So what I will say is the hope and goal is to get it up on the website before the grantee gathering. So that is before September 13th. But we'll be pushing it to get it on there as soon as possible. But probably what I will do is just send out a PDF of the slides through email so that folks could at least have it for a reference while we're working on getting everything posted on the website. Okay. I do not see any other questions. It is in fact 3:33. We're 3 minutes over. So I want to definitely respect everyone's time. I want to thank everybody for their undivided attention. Super appreciate folks joining us today. Again, we're so excited to have you on board. We hope you all are equally excited to be Farm to School grantees. So you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll be in contact via email. Take care, everyone.